time. We're only going to be about 40 minutes, maybe 50 minutes. And of course, it all depends on how many questions we get towards the end. Myself and Jason will be facilitating and presenting today. This is an interactive session. Yes, it's a webinar, but we refer to this as the Bible family. So if you're a client, there's not as much pressure. So please feel free to either to post questions. Steph will pick that up for us, or towards the end, feel free to engage a bit. Right. In terms of today's agenda, it's about GA4, Google Analytics 4. Right, guys, I must say this is not a training session. It's more creating awareness of what is GA4. You know, so we get a lot of these questions. What is GA4? And we'll try to address that. So when we walk away today, we all understand, hopefully more or less what this is and what is the plan to eventually get there, because we will need to get there eventually. Right. So I will do a little what is GA4 session. Jason, which is our product specialist on Google Analytics, he will take us through some highlights of new functionality. Then we're going to dive into the fundamental changes, and this is where our thinking, our paradigm will need to change a little bit with the new tool set, the new platform. We're going to share a couple of learnings and how to go about getting onto GA4. And hopefully there's time for questions, and hopefully we do have some questions. But also, like I've said, during today's session, just raise your hand or just butt in and contribute. Okay, so what is GA4? Guys, yeah, I've got a little product timeline on the Google Analytics platform since 2005. Now, the classic analytics platform started in 2005. Of course, back in the day, that was the bee's knees. It was very hot for the time. It only worked with browsers and very specific ways of coding in browsers. But 7 years later, Google launched Universal Analytics. Now, this is the platform or the tool we all are still using today, right? And the migration from a classic platform to the universal platform, it was basically an updated platform. It was the same code base. It was more or less the same technology. So all your setup, all your config, all your custom snippets and code could have been migrated to the new platform, right? And the universal analytics platform, it offered great benefits, especially way back in 2012. Even so today, and it was all about writing code with a bit of JS, analytics JS. GTAG was the order of the day, and it was built in 2012. Yes, there were a few updates, but without really understanding how quickly browsers and the web and devices and the Internet of Things and behavior, online behavior will change. So it kind of ignored apps. It didn't really anticipate the rise of PWA, progressive web apps, right? It didn't really understand how important data privacy will be in 2020, back in the day. So all the changes are addressing this of, we throw apps into the mix. We throw progressive web apps into the mix. We have multiple browsers. We device hopping all the time, so the behavior is different. And please do not, firstly, don't try to identify me. I want to be anonymous, Mr. Google, and do not share my personal information. And if you have my personal information, just make damn sure you protect it. Right, and this is why we have Google Analytics 4 or GA4, which is a new platform. It's not an updated platform. It's not an upgrade. It is a brand new tool set, brand new technology, brand new code base, which kind of means all your investment to date in terms of code and config and learning and understanding the platform we kind of need to start over. Of course, some of the concepts will remain, but the implementation is a brand new project, right? It's moving from let's say Google Universal Analytics to maybe Adobe Analytics. It's a brand new tool. So we can't migrate. And very important to note here, guys, is yes, Google says they will still maintain this platform for the next few years. It's going to take a long time for all these millions of users to migrate to the new platform. So it's going to be around for the next 2-3 years. Yes, Google will maintain it, but no more research and development is being invested. So no more investment into the universal platform. All investment, all R&D, and an army of developers are assigned to the GA4 platform. Okay, so that's the product journey to date. Then we're going to move into purpose by tool. So what is the fundamental, let's say, stack? How does all of this come together? Why was Universal and now GA4 designed, or why was it built? So effectively, it's all about data collection. And then once we collect it, we need to store it in some type of data warehouse. And guys, imagine all these billions of sites, the storage mechanisms behind this, the tool sets behind storing these petabytes and gigabytes and terabytes of data. And once we have a data, now we can display it, right? We can visualize the data. Now, the tools fulfilling this purpose within the GA4 framework is as follows. Collection is predominantly going to be Tag Manager. And so it's going to collect all the data, and every bit of data, GA4 is trying to tag by a device ID, a user ID, and some other thing they call Google Signals, which is a few algorithms and methods they use. But effectively, with the combination of these three areas of identification, they claim the data accuracy is going to be much better. So we know the sessions are always either inflated or it's horribly wrong, up to 30%. Some Black Fridays, right? We get into the 10,000% of wrong data, where you'll see, for example, real life users, and for some of our merchants, it will jump into 40, 50,000. And the reality back at the store, it's about 3,000 or 4,000. So we experience that every Black Friday. So tagging, identification, much more accurate, and that will bring about benefits I'll address later. The storage, this is Analytics 4. This is GA4 that is going to store the data. And on top of that warehouse, the machine learning and the pre-built analysis, all these pre-built widgets, aided by machine learning and very clever people at Google, will give us lots of benefits. Jason will take us through a few slides on what that actually means. What are these insights and stories GA4 is going to tell us, right? And then we, as from a manual perspective, we as a business, right? We need to visualize, report into Excel, into PDF, whatever the case might be. We need to a display layer. And for reporting the displaying, the main tool, GA4 in the stack, is Google Data Studio. So if you guys are familiar with Data Studio, it's a BI. So it's a presentation layer where you can visualize a few things. There are a lot of pre-built templates. So for pie charts and line charts and a lot of charting and visualization. And there's a lot of pre-built display widgets as well. But that layer is going to be mostly Data Studio. Fantastic tool, which you guys should invest in. So in summary, the stack, Tag Manager, we do all the config and setup and all the kind of scripting, what we want to collect, where we want to collect it. Then all of it gets dumped into GA4. That is your actual user interface. That is your back-end system, GA4, and there's a lot of modules and all the type of data, but it's specifically the machine learning, that let's say that proactive insights and proactive stories we're going to get. It is a quantum leap forward to what we have now. And then you as a business will want to present things in a specific way, specific format, or specific data set. And there you build your own stuff. That's manual. But there's a nice little tool set to quick add some of these visualizations and displays we need for the business. So that's the purpose of each tool within the stack. Right. I'm going to skip this slide. Guys, what of course, always after these type of chats we try to do this every 4 to 6 weeks. We're going to share all the content. We're going to share the deck and also all the sources for research we're going to share with you guys. But effectively, these days, every business decision, it's definitely data driven. And this is about, okay, firstly, set up your GA4, right? We implement your tracking. Tracking is via Tag Manager, as we've said. Then we're gonna have multiple data layers, which is a combination of data layer, which is the GA4 platform, all those insights, but also the data studio, and especially the funnels. We should invest much more time in setting up user journeys, conversion funnels, and that then provides us all the data we need for making decisions, which includes segmentation and purchase behavior and conversion rate and some of the machine learning insights Google is going to give us. Right. Now we're going to move into some of the highlights. What has actually changed from an interface and from a feature and functional perspective?
Okay, great. So what has changed in Google Analytics? With the introduction of Google Analytics 4, we used to have what was a web and an app tracking, where both would be separate. But Google has said in this day and age, Google Analytics 4 gives you one single overview of both web and app. So now we can track users across both your websites and your applications and truly see your conversions. Now, Google Analytics 4, it released a beta in 2019, but since then we've seen massive improvements in the types of data that it can now store. So in October 2020, they officially released, and now by default, if you're setting up any Google Analytics property, it starts as a GA4 property. However, as such, Vimo has now found a way to implement GA4 e-commerce tracking without making any code changes to your site. So that's great news, as it provides you a more granular view of your customers and their behavior.
Well, we don't want to deploy just for a little tracking script, right?
No, not okay. So Google Analytics 4's comparison. So what did we have in GA? What do we have in GA4? What's the purpose of us moving across? And that's the thing. We're not really going to move across. We'll be having them run in concurrency. They'll be running in parallel. We'll be tracking data to both. So with the new GA4, we're looking at some new developments that Google's released. This includes data retention reports, as well as a data deletion tool, which is great. It also provides more consistent and accurate reporting. Now, while both versions of analytics have a data dashboard with high-level statistics, GA4 has a large focus on clients, journeys, their lifetime value, and it truly showcases the improvements in acquisition as well as the engagement reports. Now, alongside that, GA4 has decided to implement machine learning to provide data predictions as well as merging of platforms.
Guys, we're going to show some screens as well, and if it's time, perhaps actually diving into some demo data.
Yeah,
a live tool.
So what you'll see on screen now is actually a screenshot of the live tool. This is one of the dashboards that GA4 has now provided with us. So this is our real-time overview. One of the biggest difference that you might notice from the old GA is it says users in the last 30 minutes, where in the old GA, this was actually live data. So it'd be showing how many people are on my site right now. But as Kevin said in his previous statement, on Black Friday and busy sites, we often saw that it wasn't accurate. It was storing multiple sessions. So what GA4 does now is consolidate your data and read across multiple devices to rather track users than sessions. So it gives us more accurate reporting statistics. On this dashboard, we actually have a cool feature though. You get to build your own views. So you don't necessarily have to see only what GA shows you, but now you can look into things such as the users visiting your site, how they found you, where they came from, as well as what devices they're using to reach the site.
Now all of this, we can say it's in the universal platform as well. This is more accurate. So the perception of real-time live, that caused a lot of issues for us, getting a lot of sometimes difficult questions to answer. Why is it not matching with what Magento is saying, or why is this not matching to reverse engineering our conversion rate? So Google is now saying, guys, it's no more live. It's a real time in 30 minutes old at most. But once it presents that 30-minute metric, it has looked at a sea of data with machine learning, filling all the gaps and the blanks, and then getting it as accurate as possible. It's, for us, I think this is going to give us a much better perspective of our metrics, and kind of an eye-opener as well.
100%. So now you've probably seen this slide. Cookies are history. This is a bold statement to be made. But with restrictions becoming stricter and stricter on customer data and data privacy, Google has announced that on the new platform, it's designed to adapt for the future. So it can track with or without cookies or identifiers. They haven't defined exactly how they're tracking, but it's using a flexible approach to the measurement. So when the data doesn't exist, the machine learning and AI kicks in and starts to fill in the gaps to give you a true representation of your data. Now, ensuring your POPI and GDPR compliance, we now have the flexibility to use consent opt-ins for both Google Ads and your Google Analytics. So your clients can choose whether or not your data can be stored. It also gives us an accumulation of more data about our users. We can track more and then restrict what data is then used in advertising. But it is important to know that a lot of this data was in the previous versions. However, with the data deletion tool that I mentioned earlier, we can now remove data if it does become a problem in the future. So we've all heard the terms AI, machine learning. We've mentioned it multiple times that Google has now added it. However, the reason behind that is we need to close the gap of the missing data. We need to find missed opportunities. So GA has incorporated this to give us an AI-based prediction and automations to provide automated alerts and insights, providing us with an opportunity to interpret the data without having to deep dive into it. So with intelligent user tracking, GA4 provides us with automated audience segmentation, which is based on our users' behavior. So we can truly see where our users are going on the site and why. Then we also get conversion insights with automated page events. Now this runs alongside Google Tag Manager. So generally what we do is you have your Google tags, they're tracking your e-commerce, your page views, how people go about on the site. But on top of that, GA4 now reads this itself. By having the tag in your tag manager and on your site, they decide which events are going to be tracked. And this is tracked alongside, so it gives a lot of consolidated data. And then one of the final points on this slide is a traffic analysis. It pinpoints anomalies in the data. It shows you if there's issues. If your tag double fires, Google's going to pick it up and they're going to tell you, you've tracked way more data than you did yesterday, something has changed. Or your data is dropping. Is there an issue on your site? Is maybe this page no longer existing? Or is there a problem in your setup? So that way there's none of this going back and forth and trying to find where the problem is, or figuring out 3 months down the line that we've missed data. Google knows and they let us know immediately.
Yeah. So Justin, before you continue, so I can foresee where webmaster tools or all the alerts and alarms and problems where the webmaster tool typically informs you, those insights will become snippets as you open your GA4 admin panel. And also what I can say, trending at the moment, these little pop-ups and widgets and amazing little insights, which will normally take us weeks to slice and dice the data and get you that. It's growing with at least 1 to 2 at the moment, and there's still not enough legs on GA4 in terms of adoption, but I can imagine where there's at least 2, maybe 3 new widgets, new insights, new machine learning widgets on a monthly basis. So in my opinion, this it's almost like a business advisor almost now in our GA4 panel. Massive value.
Now, this slide we have covered in our previous slides, so I'm just going to do a quick run through, not going to skip completely. GA4, when it released, didn't have any type of e-commerce tracking. Recently, they've released a monetary tracking, and we've managed to set up the tags for this. So this tracks your e-commerce revenue, your user engagements, as well as one new feature being an average purchase revenue per user. So now you can see your user's lifetime value. You know whether or not your organic traffic is paying off, or if your paid media is paying off, because now you can see how many users that have engaged are actually converting on the site. And then also the multi-channel. We've mentioned it, but I feel it's worth mentioning again. We are now able to consolidate the data into one dashboard. If you're running a website and an app, the data will be in one dashboard. We can see whether or not your investment is worthwhile, and also evaluate whether or not the platforms are worthwhile and how we can improve them.
Okay, so I'm going to make a controversial statement here. So basically what Jason just said, monetary tracking, right? And some of the other widgets and the reports that is now built in. So all the marketing agencies that's helping with building your campaign and then executing the campaign, and then later come back and show you the return on investment, the ROI. Google is slowly but surely starting to fulfill that role of your advertising agency. Firstly with the advisory, where to spend your money with all this machine learning, what converts, and then once you execute on these campaigns, giving you all these beautiful slides and beautiful reports which the agencies cut for us. Google is moving into that space, so we can expect in the next few years a lot of shake-up and a little bit of change in how we engage and work with our marketing agencies.
Yeah, definitely. Then this is also straight from Google Analytics 4. So they've made it easy for us to explore the data. It's great to be recording it, but we need to be able to see it. So by default right now, they've given us around 12 different templates, but this is growing. Recently, at the beginning of the year, we were only looking at 8. They've actually added some new in. So with these, we can see how people are engaging with the site. We can move the data in different ways and really determine how we can optimize the site further. So we look at things, as Kevin mentioned, funnels. We can now see the checkout journey, which is great. We can look at the paths, segments, your e-commerce, how users behave on your site, how often they're on the site and how long they normally are there for, as well as acquisition, working with your marketing efforts and seeing whether or not it's paid off. Google's handed this to us now. It's no longer use a different platform. It's now directly within Google Analytics.
Guys, here's a lot of functionality. In fact, I think it's a 12-month, maybe a 24-month certification course in this product. If you look at all the modules and all the features and all the functions, and also Tag Manager and also Google Data Studio, it's a massive tool. Now, like all the tools, Magento and your ERP and all the tools, typically you'll start with utilizing up to 20% of a tool. When I just look at this, I'm going to say when you start adopting GA4, at best, you're going to start with utilizing 15%. This is how feature rich this is. And the fundamental changes, it was very much session-driven with the Universal Analytics Platform, sessions. And sessions is, there's a lot of duplication, there's a lot of wrong data, where what I see with GA4, it's event-driven, which will give us some other perspectives on our metrics and our data. and that will drive new types of decision making in the business. So this screen, yes, it looks like 10 little blocks, but I can assure you there's a universe of functionality behind this.
Yeah.
It's going to take some time to grow into all the benefits.
So going a bit deeper into the functionality of those little blocks, customizations on report level. So this is actually an example of if you select the funnels option on that reports menu. From this tab itself, you now get to define all your different steps. Your segments, what type of traffic do we want to be looking at? In this funnel, do we only want to look at who came from paid traffic or did they come from organic traffic, and know how many people drop off? We can define the steps. So is it from when you've hit the site or from when you've viewed an item? Do we want to see your add to carts? Do we want to see your remove from carts and your purchases? You can now define step by step what data you're going to be receiving. And then one of the nice features of this is the dimensions. So if you only want to look at specific events that have happened, so you can define whether it's GA's internal events or the ones you've set up through Tag Manager, you can define that that is going to be what pulls through into these reports. And then you can compare that data as well. And then there's other things such as your country. Which country has a better funnel? Which device category has a better funnel? Is it your desktop? Is it your mobile? Where is your true traffic come from? And then if we know that, then you can optimize on that level. Do we need to put huge focus into desktop for your business? Or actually, do we need to focus more on mobile? Now, these reports give you the opportunity to actually see that for yourself. You can see the data. It's handed to you, and they've given us a nice dashboard to make it possible.
Definitely more detail, more event-based actions or activities within the funnel, more functionality in configuration, and then more functionality to actually display and get insights. And then the beauty is the machine learning, where Google will give you a bit of advice or a little snippet or just a little gold nugget, which we as humans don't interpret.
Then we move on to fundamental changes. So what truly changed from your Universal Analytics to your GA4? Now, the slide is based on the data layers. So in my previous statements of when we do GA to GA4 changeover, well, actually to run in concurrency, we don't have to make code changes to your site. The way we're doing that is in the traditional setup, you would have your website with an e-commerce data layer within the code, and Google Analytics is reading that data directly and it's putting it into your dashboard. However, here comes along with GA4, and they've decided that the whole format of the data layer is going to be completely different, and it would have made a massive change. So what we've managed to do is instead of changing the site, we're using Google Tag Manager, which now contains a converter. We've added in a converter for these tags. So when Google Tag Manager fires on your site, meaning someone is interacting, they're going through the pages, we receive the data as we always would. Google Tag Manager will now convert it into being the Google Analytics 4 data layers via mapping. And then we push the data to both GA4 and also to the old GA.
Universal.
So by doing this, we have both, and we have the correct data layers without code changes to the site.
So are you saying nobody needs to call Vimo, and the PM don't need to plan a web developer?
Exactly.
And no deploy?
100%. There's no code change on your site whatsoever.
And the client can do this themselves?
No, not a converter. So there is tags that need to be set up for GA4 in GTM that Vimo has gone through and made sure it's working, because there are some on community markets that claim to do this, but they don't work correctly.
But at least the tag manager bit they can do themselves.
Yes, this all handles through Tag Manager. There's no website change.
Okay. And this is where everybody should give a clap.
And then another massive change from the way in which GA tracked to the way that GA4 tracks. GA4 is now considering individual users on the site rather than sessions data. So on the left-hand side of the slide, you're going to see it says user ID, Google Signals, device IDs. Kevin spoke about this earlier. This is the way in which Google's looking at how you're interacting and how they record the data. On the older versions of GA, being the original, be it Universal Analytics, it was all about device IDs. So if I'm on my phone and then I'm on my desktop, they see it as two different people. However, we know that on websites, the users are tracked. And now Google is picking up and they've decided to only look at user IDs. So if I'm browsing on my phone and I decide, no, I'm going to send this link to my desktop to continue because it's easier to make a payment, they'll now know that that's the same person. It's actually part of the same checkout journey. I've just changed my device or changed my browser. So this data now exists, and they found a way that we can track this across.
Yeah, and the Google Signals is anything Google which you touch, right, leaves a little trace on your machine, and then it will pick up that to identify a user ID. So Gmail, Sheets, Slides, so all the Google suite of tools will leave a trace and a signal that will help Google to tag that user ID.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
So some learnings and implementations. Of course, we're learning as we go as well. It's a new desktop. It's a new platform. We're trying to get into it. But there are some things we have come across that we feel it's quite important to share. So the monetary data, your e-commerce data. In the old Universal Analytics, it took around 24 hours. In GA4, we're looking between 12 and 24 hours for it to reflect. Then, as we've said, sessions is no longer being recorded in the dashboard itself. However, Google has said if you need this session data, you can do this through Google BigQuery, which again is another platform. That's a whole nother discussion on how to set it up, but it is possible to do. If you need session data, it's not the be all and end all of you can't use GA4. It does exist and it can be tracked. Then we have these built-in end-to-end user ID reports. In older versions of GA, we had to create reports of how many users were on my site. Is it the same person? How do we consolidate? How do we compare its transactions and get true conversion rates? GA4 gives this to us off the bat. This is a default report from the dashboard. We can now see, okay, how many users were on my site? What was their user ID? How long were they on the site for? And we can really see a real conversion rate. Then a few other things that we have mentioned already. We use Google Tag Manager because it's more accurate. As I mentioned, GA4 out of the box comes with an event tracking. It can see what happens on the site and we can do comparisons of this data. But by doing the comparisons, we can see that manually tagging and having them fire through Tag Manager is more reliable. And then just a side note, we have gone through and looked at the best practices that Google's announced for the Tag Manager, as well as having conversions to make sure the data remains consistent. And that is the way that we would be setting it up. Then how we implement this. So we've more or less touched on this throughout the whole presentation, but GA and GA4 will run in parallel. We're not going to scrap one for the other because Universal Analytics still has a lot of benefit. There's a lot of reports that are still there that GA4 hasn't moved across yet. So in the coming months, when we see more developments, and in a few years when Google finally makes an announcement of the actual move over, then we can discuss it. But for now, in parallel is probably our best bet.
Just a quick question. Sorry, this is not totally off topic. Google Data Studio.
Yes.
We are connecting other data sources besides
Yes.
GA4.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Then there's no code changes. As we said, this can be handled directly through Google Tag Manager. We don't have to make any changes to your site. So there's no deploys, no oops, we took a site down because something went wrong. There's no planning for developers. This is a matter of we action it, it can be done for you. It's not a massive, long change. And then we're converting the data layers, and testing is normally between 24 and 48 hours, purely because we need the data to start reflecting before we can truly test to make sure everything is functioning as intended.
Okay, guys, so just a quick time check. I think we have another 10 minutes or so. I'm repeating myself now, but the process will be as follows. It's very, very high level. We are quite familiar with your current universal setup, so it won't take too much time. So, but we need to, kind of just make sure that we do a thorough checking on the current setup for configuration. So it says what is there. Then with a bit of consulting and some of your wishes that's been on some type of backlog for ages, we say, okay, what more do we want to get in terms of insights, behavior, funnels, conversion, ROI, etc. Then we configure that in GA4. We track and measure and monitor in parallel, and we optimize from there. So that's the process. In terms of timeline, it's a 2 to 3 week exercise to get us up and running on GA4 in parallel with your current setup, right? And I think we have 2 or 3 sites already set up, and the data that's coming through, it's quite different. I'm going to say. We already feel that with GA4 there's much more meaning, much more. It just feels more realistic. But in total, it's a 2 to 3 week process. We want to get to the stage where we can monitor and measure and get more insights. And as we get more insights, we're going to tune it a bit more and tune it a bit more. I'm really excited. Like I've said, this can actually be this is going to shake up the market, especially on agency and marketing agency side. And in terms of effort, normally duration is 2 to 3 weeks. Effort, including consulting and technical setup and these type of things, you're looking between 4, sometimes 10 hours. So please speak to your project manager, your project coordinator, if we must prioritize this as a deliverable quite soon. So, in conclusion, from my side, it's a new platform that comes with a universe of opportunities. We know Google is pumping billions into this. So you want to get onto the journey as soon as possible, right? The tool is, I'm always going to say, it's enterprise class. It's the types of functions and feature sets and what you can do starts to move into enterprise like Adobe Analytics, for example. So it's no longer just software as a service or some type of freebie Google is providing. It's enterprise class, my opinion, which means it's complex. There's a massive learning curve to this, and the quicker you get onto the journey, the quicker we're going to get to the point where it makes a difference in your business, right? And so start early as possible. It will, in my opinion, it's going to give us more insights into CRO, conversion rate optimization. It's going to guide us where to optimize better. And do not be surprised if in some cases your conversion rate is going to all of a sudden be maybe 0.2% better or 0.2% worse because the data is much more accurate. We like this because Google is talking the right language in terms of the data policies and data privacy and POPI and GDPR and all these things. So they're saying the right things, but what they say and typically what they do don't always match. But at least for the first time, they're acknowledging data privacy is important. And Google is one of those companies that just wants to collect, right? So this is helping us. So guys, yeah, that's our little song and dance for this morning. Great tool for free, needs a bit of services, and it's going to be a long journey adopting all the benefits and features and really squeezing more out of our spend to acquire and to convert and to retain your customers at the end of the day. Annie, can we unmute for maybe 1 or 2 questions?
Kevin, everyone has can unmute and then ask their questions away. They've got that capability. So any questions? I have answered a couple of questions on the chat, but if there's any other questions, please feel free to ask now. If you're a bit calm, you can also type it out for us or send us an email afterwards. But it's now the time for you guys to pepper us with your questions and what you need to know.
Thanks, everyone.
Also, if you want, feel free just to reach out to Jason. Google has a beautiful set of demo data, so we can take you through the demo data. We can talk you through the modules, and highlight these fundamental changes, and also show you how this machine learning is working. That is really hard stuff. I almost said something else, but it's hard stuff, that machine learning. And like I've said, that machine learning is just going to grow and it's going to explode. Then we're not going to need any advisors going forward. If you're not on the bandwagon of Data Studio, Google Data Studio, and if you've got your internal BIs, if you have ClickView or whatever BI you're running internally, this Data Studio, you can plug in multiple data sources, and it's very, very user-friendly to visualize data into insights. You can report, you can output to any medium. Great little visualization layer. I'm going to say it's almost a good mid-level BI, and it's for free and it's quick and easy. Okay, please guys, do consider that one.
I've got a quick question for you. So I've fortunately got privileged enough to have GA4 running already, side by side with analytics. Comparing the two, the representation of data is massively different. And I think there's quite a steep learning curve. You know, analytics, you're used to drilling into all the data. You know, you click here and you click and you drill into everything. GA4 is very different. So I posed the question in the question chat was around resources, learning resources. Doesn't look like Analytics Academy have released anything yet, but maybe if you guys can suggest some good resources, learning resources for this.
Definitely, I can provide that when we do share through these slides. Google has released one or two. This is still a new platform because it only released in October, but I know for sure there is at least one training course on Google's skill set regarding Google Analytics 4 and the way in which you can do the initial usage of the platform. And going forward, they have said there will be more advanced courses coming.
But at least there's some entry-level courses.
There is entry-level that we can do, yeah.
Okay, Max, we're going to share.
Cool, thank you.
Right. So did you increase it up? HP for us?
Yeah.
Okay, Max, so you want to go first. Thank you. I appreciate it for taking the leap. Yeah, but it's a massive learning curve. The platform is vast and deep. But the quicker you start, the quicker we're going to get to that meaningful point where it's an amazing tool. Yeah,
100%.
Okay, if there's no more questions, then thank you
Thanks so much for joining.
From Jason and I, and looking forward to the next webinar. Feel free to reach out to us, call anytime, pop us an email, and just make a note of this one. And I can highly advise, get it kind of high priority on your deliverable roadmap, please. Thank you, Steph, for inviting everybody today, and thank you, Annie, for providing the platform and the tech, and we shall talk soon again.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.